Penlan Estate, Talworth. Right, good evening everybody. Thank you very much for attending this, the 7th meeting of the Swansea Ufo Network. I can't believe the club has been running for 7 months now. I'd like to thank you all for your continued interest and your support. Thank you very much. Now, tonight once again we got the pleasure of Mr. Brian Harry. Brian's attended the club from the very start of proceedings, and at an earlier meeting he's already shared with us details of a very interesting UFO sighting he had in the Cray area, if you remember that. Now I'm really looking forward to this because tonight he's going to discuss the subject of crop circles and his own experiences in the field. Excuse the pun. After that then, as Emlyn said, he'll be bringing you up to date with the latest local incidents and sightings and discussing some interesting new developments involving this club. Now before that I'm going to bore you with, as usual, with my very short discussions. Now in the past I've touched on such subjects as the history of UFO sightings, commercial airliners and UFOs, the Belgium UFO wave, USOs or unidentified submerged objects, and also the controversial subject of alleged alien abductions. Now although the subject of UFOs is prodigious, it can be somewhat difficult to find an aspect of it to discuss with you that you can't easily find or already found on the internet. So forgive me if you've already delved into tonight's topic, and you may have a greater understanding of it than I have myself. Anyway, tonight I'm going to tentatively explore the subject of UFO propulsion. Now then, I suppose if you're a UFO skeptic, then the biggest repudiation of the subject would be to say something like UFOs cannot exist, as the nearest known planet capable of supporting life is approximately 4.2 light years away, which consequently means no spacecraft could easily cross that distance. And given the current extent of our scientific knowledge, I can understand that viewpoint. However, as far as I'm concerned, and most of the people in this room are concerned, and millions of people all around the world are concerned, and surreptitiously heads of certain governments around the world are concerned, given the undeniable multitude of worldwide UFO sightings made on a daily basis, that statement, I would say, is incontrovertibly flawed. So if one is to accept the fact that we are being visited by craft from other planets, where are they coming from? And how are they getting here? Now, as much as I'd like to say I know the answer, unfortunately I don't. But maybe we can touch on a few hypotheses. Now let me say straight away that I don't necessarily believe in all or any of the following theories, although there's many that do, so let's go through them. Firstly, where are the craft coming from? Are they travelling great distances, or are they coming from somewhere not that far away? Well, we've already discussed in a previous meeting the possibility of underground bases on our own planet, and the many sightings there have been of UFOs and USOs, both entering and exiting the Arctic, the Antarctic, and many underwater areas around our own planet. If you listen to some people's viewpoints, even the dark side or the undersurface of our own moon is a possible contender. There's been much discussion about the strange-looking structures photographed on the moon. There's also the theory that our own astronauts were warned off further visiting the moon by entities they allegedly encountered. So what about Mars? Well, here again there are peculiar photographs of weird structures on the surface of the planet, which, as many of you attended the very interesting discussion given by Mr. Howard Middleton-Jones will remember, they were outlined by him, together with the hypothesis that Mars may well have been inhabited a very long time ago. There is, in fact, an unnatural bulge at the Martian equator, which some have suggested may be an artificial dome. One of its moons, Phobos, has a peculiar orbit, apparently violating usual natural laws. Phobos orbits Mars faster than the planet turns on its actual axis. And this, together with other factors, has led to the belief that Phobos is, in fact, a 10-mile wide, hollow artificial spacecraft, or orbiting shelter containing some original Martian species. And what of the International Space Station? and the constant array of live video footage of strange objects regularly passing nearby. And on some occasions, as we know, the live feed showing them mysteriously stops. Now, Mr. Middleton-Jones also discussed the subject of solar anomalies, showing us some very interesting photographs of strange objects flying past and into and out of the sun, causing discharge of immense solar flares. Right, that brings us nicely on to another hypothesis. If these craft are travelling great distances, how are they reaching us with apparent ease? Is travelling faster than the speed of light possible? Well, every schoolboy knows that all you've got to do is simply lean forward in the captain's chair, say warp factor 9, engage, and off you boldly go where no man has gotten before. Of course, anyone who has the slightest grounding in science knows that this is scientifically impossible. You cannot travel faster than light because Einstein says so. Now, there's a perfectly good reason for this. As an object increases in speed, its mass increases. This is not merely theoretical, it has been observed in particle accelerators like that at CERN in Switzerland. Speed up an electron and its mass increases. As it approaches light speed, its mass approaches being infinitely large. Just to keep its speed, it would thus need all the energy in the universe to propel it. Clearly, this is not on, whatever Captain Kirk says. Perhaps science might discover new methods of propulsion. Scotty's fabled lithium crystals, perhaps, or a matter-antimatter reactor. Sadly, there is no crystal or a reactor that can get round the speed of light barrier. Perhaps electromagnetic force may be the answer. There is certainly a great deal of research going on at this time into developing this form of power as a possible means of propulsion. So what about the idea of bend in space? Well, there is a concept which was first suggested by Russian physicist Andrei Sakharov. He put forward the theory that space is not empty but is full of energy, the so-called zero-point field. That suggestion has been taken up by 4 other physicists in the USA, one of which is an astrophysicist working at Lockheed's clandestine research laboratories. They published an article entitled Inertia as a Zero-Point Field Lorentz Force, Lorentz being electromagnetic. And it offered a radically new interpretation of the origin of the strange quality of inertia. This new concept of inertia also points to a new understanding of gravity, since gravity and inertia are inextricably mixed and intertwined. It was pointed out that there was recent success in manipulating atomic processes by controlling zero-point fields in the lab. If they are right, that both gravity and inertia stem from the zero-point field, then someday we might be able to manipulate both. This in turn does mean quite simply a warp drive. Now, in 1994, a theoretical physicist at the University of Wales published a paper called The Warp Drive, Hyperfast Travel Within General Relativity. This showed it is theoretically possible to distort space to allow warp speed travel to literally expand the volume of space and time behind the starship, while compressing it up ahead, sort of like feeding a tent pole through its sleeve by bunching up the fabric ahead and pulling it along behind. The position of a spaceship within such a distortion would change relative to its destination, yet the ship itself need not actually move at all. So maybe someone one day will be able to give the order warp factor 9 engage. Okay, moving on lastly to black holes and parallel universes. Well, as you may be aware, the Large Hadron Collider, that's better, isn't it? The Large Hadron Collider, that's it, at the CERN Centre in Geneva is about to be fired up again to its highest energy levels in a bid to detect or actually create small black holes. Now, the experiment will undoubtedly inflame critics of the LHC, many of whom initially warned that the high-energy particle collider would spell the end of our universe with the creation of a black hole of its own. It is the scientists' belief that the key to finding parallel universes may come from detecting miniature black holes at certain energy levels. The detection of the mini black holes would in fact indicate the existence of extra dimensions, which would support string theory and related models that predict the existence of extra dimensions as well as parallel universes. Up to now, the LHC has only been fired up to energy levels incapable of detecting black holes. However, that's about to change with this new experiment. If successful, a completely new universe a new universe will be revealed, actually, rewriting not only the physics books, but philosophy books as well. It could even mean that in fact the universe stretches back in time infinitely, which would blow the Big Bang theory out of the water, indicating that it never actually occurred. So, is this another step towards disclosure? Quite possibly. Do the people in the know that alien beings are coming from another dimension? Hence the amount of efforts being put into this incredible project at CERN? Again, quite possibly. So, in conclusion, I would say to all skeptics, just realise that we're still in the infancy of our knowledge, and there's one hell of a lot to learn and be revealed. But we are progressing very quickly. And I'm sure it won't be long before I and everyone else in this room who has the astuteness to keep an open mind will be able to say, I told you so. Thanks.